Welcome to the Oil and Gas Sales and Marketing Podcast, where every week your hosts Mark LaCour and Matt Bertram share proven strategies and real-world tactics to help you connect with customers and close more deals. Let's do this.
Howdy, welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Oil and Gas Sales and Marketing Show. We are at the Sellwell Conference talking about selling into oil and gas. And I have a great guest for you today, Richard Byrd. He's a fractional CMO, president of Bluebird, doing strategic marketing and sales. He's got a long background, like myself, in marketing. I actually was reverse. I was a sales guy that got into marketing. Big marketing guy got into sales. So I know we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. So let's just set the table. If we're talking about oil and gas sales, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I would say, to me, it's a couple of things. So I think it's long sales cycles, complex buying centers, and having to really ride it out for a long time. It can be a very challenging market, and that's when times are good and there's a upturn in the industry, right? When there's a downturn in the industry, it really gets hard. And the other thing, too, I think, is when times are great, when you're $100 a barrel oil, it's even harder to sell because they're too busy and they're printing money and they don't want to buy anything else because they're making plenty of money.
So, Richard, one of the things also that the ethos of how this podcast was formed is Mark and I believe that sales and marketing in oil and gas should be connected at the hip.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, before we got started, about, well, from the marketing side, you wanted to influence sales a little bit more. And I was on the sales side going, I need more leverage with marketing. And so I am super excited. So there's CROs now, right? There's RevOps, which is starting to bring in finance. How would you view the relationship typically between marketing and sales professionals in the same organization?
Yeah, well, you know, you're singing from my hymnal there too, so we're really aligned to that because it took me a while to catch on that sales and marketing should be closely connected. I worked for a large oil and gas services company before I started my own firm, and you know, we were a company that was known for really cranking out shiny new objects and selling them at a premium price. And I can tell you, we were guilty of not even letting the salespeople know that we had just commercialized this major piece of technology. And they were like, what the heck, guys? You got to at least let us know this is coming down because our clients were asking them about it. We did a good job on the marketing side. And they were like, hey, you know, you didn't even tell us about it. And our customers are coming in asking us about these things that you've launched at OTC or whatever, you know, whatever the thing. And so,
super siloed.
Yeah, that crazy siloed. And then I went to a sales training there. And we had just commercialized something, and there was a guy there that was talking about that new thing we commercialized, and he was a long-term, you know, technical oil and gas sales guy, real smart engineer, converted to sales. You've never seen that before in the oil and gas industry, have you? But anyway, he came and he gave the worst sales presentation I've ever seen in my life, with the ugliest PowerPoint I've ever seen in my life, and he didn't hit any of the main value propositions that we had laid out for him in marketing. And then he didn't talk about any of the 5 case studies we had already produced. And I thought, we got to do a better job about communicating this. So that was what really got me on my journey to do that. And now at Bluebird, we really preach that. And, you know, we've worked with a lot of software companies, and, you know, that's where I first learned about the RevOps model. The software does a good job of incorporating sales and marketing and product and service. And, you know, it's something that really has to happen. And I think as part of our job as fractional CMOs, when I first started Bluebird, that's what we really did, is we were fractional CMO, so we'd have to work as a part of the team, and a lot of those companies were very siloed between sales and marketing too. And so what happened is we would say, hey, we generate all these great leads for you guys, go close them, and just, you know, assume that they're going to go out and close those deals. And then the deals didn't close. And so what happens? The leads sucked, right? And we're like, well, wait, that didn't seem like they were sucky leads to us. It was the right people, you know, right job titles at the right companies, right level of seniority, right geographies. Tell me why they sucked. Well, it turned out they weren't ready to buy today. So they said this is a terrible lead because they're not ready to buy today. And I think when you have sales teams that are kind of order takers or this kind of thing, they're like, hey, I don't have time to chase that, especially in the oil and gas industry. People tend to get busy and so relationship driven and all those things that I think it's easy to say, well, look, that's not wasting my time on. But it's like, no, let's put them back in the marketing funnel and keep them warm because look, it's because they're not ready to buy today doesn't mean they're not going to be ready to buy tomorrow. And I think one stat that has really been driving our thoughts at Blue Bird is the fact that at any one given moment, that only 5% of your total addressable market is ready to buy. And I got pushback on that, and they were like, that can't be true. And I said, you're right. I think that number is probably most certainly incorrect. But I think directionally it's right. And I said, imagine if you're sitting in a room and there are 100 people in that room, and you said, how many people here sleep on mattresses? Well, probably all 100 people would raise their hand, right? But if you said, how many people in here are in the market to buy a brand new mattress? Well, today. Right? Well, 5 or 6 people probably would raise their hand. You go, well, there you go. That's, directionally it's right. And I think if you're selling oil tools or oil field software or whatever, that's probably most certainly the case with that too.
So I want to go down that path of demand generation and nurture. But before that, I want to go back to RevOps, okay?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like with oil and gas, more than almost any other industry, but certainly there are other industries as well as in software, but you have so much leverage to say, this is going to save you X amount of dollars. Like if you're talking about big rig count, or we're going to help you, like if you can speak the language of finance, right? And depending on who you're selling to, you can show the value of that you're offering pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is nomenclature that's being used all the time from salespeople to start to bring in the finance component and talk in the dollars and cents of what they can save. And there's so much scale out there that, a small percent increase of here or there could have a huge impact.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I love about the oil field. Honestly, our prices are so meager at Blue Bird compared to what they're making. And I always say, look, if you're saving people $100 million or generating $100 million worth of oil and gas for a hydrocarbon for our client, well, guess what? They're probably not going to be as price sensitive if you can frame it around that. We're solving a $100 million problem here, guys. And yes, it's going to be $300,000 per run to drop this wireline tool down in this really expensive, $100 million well. But if you don't have to sidetrack it, or you aren't going to lose the well because this problem is going to eliminate a lot of that risk for you. Well, you have a very different discussion with the team than if you just go in there and try to sell them your fancy wireline service.
No, I love that. So I think that we haven't talked a lot about or enough about on this show is that nurture component of the cycle and really where marketing fits in. So they just, go get us leads, right? Marketing, go get us leads, demand generation. People love to, easy peasy, run some ads, target the right people, run some LinkedIn ads. There you go. But you're only talking to 5% of the total addressable market for who's in the market to buy. And so the expectation and the alignment has to be set properly.
For sure. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of times that's what people come to us for. Like that's what they think of when they think of marketing. And we like a larger approach to marketing. We work with our clients even on product rationalization, pricing, all the marketing stuff with a big M. And so we think marketing starts really early, like pre-commercialization, and we help a lot of commercialization work too, is what we help with. So I think, for us, it's always been, thinking about it broader, but so many people come in, they have a very narrow view of marketing. It's like, just get us some leads, get those deals in front of us, and we got it from here. And I think a lot of times, the branding side, right?
Or the conferences, right? They're like, marketing is conference collateral.
Yeah, squeezy balls and camouflage baseball caps.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a marketing qualified lead, a sales qualified lead, they're the same thing.
They should be. Right? And, we even skipped over sales qualified leads, and we go straight to opportunities. Because if it's not an opportunity, that's what really is we're all talking about here. Now, can you close it, and you can close it in a timely manner? That becomes another story. And that's what, to your point, that's where nurturing comes in. What we found is Or the last stat I saw from Forrester Research was that the average B2B sell requires 30 touches to get it over the line. And I thought, in oil and gas, that's much higher. Because if you think about it, a lot of these big deals that people are working on in the oil and gas industry can take our average. I would say what we hear the most, like 18 months sales cycle. We've had 24, we've had 36-month sales cycles before too. And so you go, wow, that is a really long time. So if you only talk to people at 30 times in 18 months, you're probably not going to win that deal, I would think, right? And you're probably only talking to about one or two people in the buying committee. You're probably not being, people, I think the oil and gas industry does a great job of protecting its people. And so you never know who all is going to be in your buying committee. And you most certainly won't get to talk to all of them. And so that's where, I think marketing can really come in and help and start talking to talk around some of the people without the sales guy getting in trouble for talking out, to somebody higher in the org, right?
Yeah.
That would be going around them. They hate that. And I think that is, I think you can do that through email marketing is a big one because salespeople are so busy. And I think the really best salespeople are ADD. Myself included, and not that I'm the best salesperson, but I think I think that's something that and staying on top of deals is maybe hard for some salespeople. We have a concept that we like to talk about, and when it comes to salespeople, is do you have zoo tigers or do you have jungle tigers? And so jungle tigers, you throw them in any environment and they're going to eat, right? They're going to eat. And zoo tigers now, they like for the zookeeper to bring them in some steaks, and they'll eat those just fine, right? But they're not going to go kill an impala tomorrow. And I think, as we think about that in there, like the thing with the jungle tigers, everybody's like, give me jungle tigers, but they're good, but they're going to lose interest really fast. And they're like, these guys didn't want to buy from me. I'm going to go get something else, right? But the zoo tigers are like, hey, I'll ride them. Like, I'll stay on them for a long time. And I'll stay on that zookeeper until he brings me a good steak. And so you need them both. And I think
I've heard hunters and farmers. I haven't heard the tiger analogy. I love it.
Yeah, it's a fun concept.
So when we talk about these 36-month sales cycles or 24-month sales cycles, how do you set the tone for that kind of approach? Because you're trying to nurture demand, you're trying to harvest it over time, and a lot of times when people approach a fractional CMO or a marketing agency, they have a pain point and they need demand, they need leads right now.
Yeah,
it's not always a zoo environment,
sure.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I think when we come in, that's certainly the expectation, right? It's like one of the things that we really hold ourselves accountable to at Bluebird is revenue. We're revenue focused. It's one of our core values. Relentlessly drive revenue for our clients. It's one of them. And I think, when you hold yourself accountable to revenue, it is a double-edged sword because people love it to hear about that in the sales process, but then you get fired for that if you don't do it. And so it can be very challenging to do that. So what we are always looking for when we come in with a client
Impact.
is, what is low-hanging fruit?
Yeah.
Because, yes, this $8 million deal that you want to do. Well, and by the way, you want to sell it to a company you're not on the vendor list for yet. Well, guess what? That's going to take a very long time to get on Chevron's vendor list. And they're going to have to go through a lot of qualifications. And we'll work on that. But this is, we might not be there when you close this $8 million deal, right? But what are the things that we can do? What are the deals that are already in your CRM? And I think it's something that we really see a lot is in the oil field, more than any other industry, I think, is really neglected at CRMs, where the data is garbage. People have not been really keeping track of their deals. I think a lot of salespeople in the oil and gas industry feel threatened by entering their information in there. Sometimes
there's only so many majors. There's only so many independents. Like if you're selling upstream, like there's a limited number of people. They're probably already in your CRM or somebody that works in the organization.
That's right. Well, I think that is and that's another one we see a lot too. It's like, they're like, that's Bob. He's Exxon is his account. And I'm like, oh, really? He's selling to everybody in Exxon all around the world. When's the last time you took a trip to Guyana? Really, Bob? You own all of Exxon? Come on, let's share these leads.
I've seen that more than I would like to see, and there's some politics associated with certain organizations for sure.
Yeah, we see that a ton, and so it's like I remember there was a great Far Side comic, and there was this beached whale, and there was this fly flying to the well, and he said, "Dibs." And there's all these flies behind him. Like, no, you can't eat that, buddy. So anyway, that's what I feel like every time I talk to a company who does that. But yeah, you're right. And I think not only that, but those accounts, I think what we see too is a lot of times the rep feels like they own the account, and because of a relationship there or what have you, and they don't realize that really it's the company who owns the account. You might have a relationship with somebody there, but it's not your account. That is the company's account. And you could
break it by division too, or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I've landed a number of accounts where I haven't touched the surface, right? And there's money to be there's budgets all around.
Yeah.
Right. And
have you noticed this too? This is something we see a lot. It's peculiar behavior until you recognize why. But a lot of times in the oil and gas space, we see people don't want to cross-sell, even within our own organization. So this is one that I see a ton. And, when I was working at a large oil and gas services company, we were really acquisitive, and we acquired a drill bit company, and we sold everything else in the oil field, basically at that company. And we're really strong in rotary steerables and metrology, drilling measurements and all those things. And we just thought it was which we told the investors, this is going to be a grand slam because we're just going to pull through all these drill bit cells into our other business. And we were strong internationally. They were not strong internationally. And we didn't cross-sell at all. It was bad. And we're like, what is going on? So we went in and started talking to the salespeople. We're like, why won't you help sell drill bits? And they said, well, and these are really smart people. These are not, dummies. And they're like, well, we don't understand drill bits.
Yep.
We don't want to introduce the idea of drill bits, and we just don't want to do it. And we're like, well, would you make an introduction to the person who does know about drill bits? And they said, no. Because we don't know them. We don't like them. We don't trust them. They're not part of our organization. What if they ruin our relationship?
Yep. These are the three big things, right? Oh, yeah.
It happens. And it was really fascinating to me. And the trend I've noticed is the smarter the salesperson, the less likely they are to cross-sell. And I think where I landed on that after puzzling it for a while is they're used to looking like experts. And they want to be seen as smart, like Elvis do, right? And they don't want to look stupid by representing, suggesting something that somebody says, hey, what about this? Instead of saying, well, like, I'm stupid, so I don't mind making introductions because I know I'm stupid. And so I'm like, I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know the answer to it. But look, let me introduce you to my friend Matt. He can tell you all about that stuff. Let's go get beers. Let's go to lunch. I'll make the introduction.
Yeah, I think mindset and positioning are really important, and the education piece is critical. I've found moving up the organization, moving into a fractional role with the company and getting a better viewpoint where you tap into more things is certainly helpful, or a consultant that comes in and gets a wider view. But I think it's that modality switch to selling these different things to get the questions you don't know, and how is this relationship going to impact that. But man, if you are adding value, right, by introducing that, anytime you introduce two people, and if they do business together, you get some kind of benefit from that. I think that social media has started to change that too, because also is very kind of secretive of who knew who, and I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
It's something that really we like to do it, and so we're always introducing our clients, and hey, do you guys are selling to these guys, but you don't do this? Do you know this guy over here? Let me make an introduction. And I think our clients love it, even if they can't make a deal out of it. And they're like, well, this guy's kind of put money in our pocket. I think it starts
within, like I said, it's like a confidence component of how you view the world. Are you and salespeople, right? Abundance mindset, right? Scarcity mindset. I think that's that core belief of that fear is probably where it starts. I don't know that, or I don't have that education.
That's really interesting. I'm just thinking out loud here, but I think maybe it's because of the boom and bust cycle of oil and gas. There's nothing like an oil bust that'll create a scarcity mindset. I remember the day that oil went negative. I definitely had a scarcity mindset that day.
I did buy that day. I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
My dad was in the oil field, so I grew up in, steak and lobster one night and hot dogs and beans the next. And when that happened, I called him. I was like, you ever seen this? You ever seen it go negative? He's like, no, I've seen it in the single digits, but I've never seen it go negative.
It's a weird world. Curious, what are you doing with AI? And I would love to hear what for like a company that's approaching the oil and gas space, right? So a lot of people that listen start to listen because they want to sell into oil and gas.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But they don't know where to start. They know that there's a moat there. They're trying to understand that. What's a good marketing, sales, kind of account-based selling strategy that doesn't work all the time because it depends, but is a good place to start with the framework when they're going to market?
Man, that's a good question. So you mentioned a couple of things there. So AI is, that's always the...
And it should be incorporated into everything. That's my answer.
Yeah, we like it. We use it for a lot of things. And one of the things we use it for a lot is research, right?
Yeah,
because, man, the oil and gas industry, I saw somebody and they said that I'm an oil and gas expert. And I was like, that's how exactly I know you're not an oil and gas expert, because no oil and gas person would say I'm an expert in oil and gas, because you can't be. You cannot be an oil. That's a big industry, right? And so if you said, look, I'm a drilling fluids expert, I would buy that, right? And so, but I think to do that research for us, we have to come in and understand this special niche from, sucker rods to, fancy software to, all these things. And so we use it a lot for that. And that really helps. That helps a lot. We have AI note takers. I think, I'm the CEO of my company, and I forget that sometimes. And so I'm like, we need some more AI tools. We need to really get understand. And I'm like, whoa. I was kind of thinking out loud, guys. I mean, everybody come in with a whole new tool and try to incorporate in our business. So we're trying to get some governance around that now. But yeah, there's no shortage of tools for that. But I think as far as to bring it around to the point of the, actually, penetrating into the oil and gas space, I think it is an account-based marketing. You just nailed it. It's perfect, right? So, because I think, some of our clients, they might have, if they really think about it, they might have 2,000 customers across the world that are actually going to be the ones that say yes to this niche service. And I think, finding those people now is a lot easier than it used to be. Oh, yeah. And so with, doing research on it with Zoom Info is a tool we like for, finding that and like kind of building out those buying committees and thinking of, that's the other thing too, is I'm thinking about the whole buying committee, because I think that's a big one.
I think like with decks, right? People need to know those decks are getting passed around. So I like when decks or leave behinds are happening, that like, hopefully this is going to get to other people on the buying committee, and I might not be able to speak to them. So I need to speak through whatever I'm leaving or what I'm doing. And, I think that inbound marketing doesn't quite sit where people think it should, but the buying process, the statistic I saw, and I wish I could reference who, is something like 75% of the buying is happening before someone picks up the phone.
Yeah.
And also after they, you pitch in or whatever, you meet somebody, they go do a ton of research on you. Yeah. You got to make sure your brand is on point across all the different channels. You want to have the right messaging. This is when we have clients come to us, many times we're like maybe going through a website redesign. They're like, did you write this? And then we're like, no, this was on your website. Yeah. This has been on your website for X number of years. Like, so people need to think about that. And the big thing right now that I'm personally focused on is like LLM visibility. Like, how are you showing up as an entity? Because there's Matt Bertram and there's Matthew Bertram. Okay, I've been operating. If you look at all these books here, I have some as Matthew Bertram, some as Matt Bertram. I could go into details. I've written some blogs on this, but you need to start thinking about how you're associated with other things online, how people are viewing you. Your job titles change. If you don't post online, that's saying something too. And if you do, so if you're a salesperson and you're reaching out to somebody and you have no social presence, how is someone going to connect with you? Is this a scam? Like, that's the first thing I think, like if someone doesn't have a presence online. So there's just a lot to consider, I guess.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one interesting one too, because I think, I've been lifelong marketer and, been in BD for a long time now and all that stuff. So, and I was an early adopter on LinkedIn and all that. And so it shocks me how people will still talk to people. I talked to somebody last week in the oil and gas space, and they're like, well, we don't really do LinkedIn, and I don't want to do LinkedIn. I was like, well, I hate to break it to you, but you're the CEO of this company, and people want to know what you have to think. Yeah, it's like you're going to have to get a LinkedIn account with a nice photograph, and we're going to start producing some content for you because it's expected. It's table stakes.
4% of people, or some. The statistic is a little dated, but I don't think it's much higher than that. Globally, produce content on LinkedIn it was like maybe once a week or once a month, just one post, because there's so many people that have profiles, but people don't have updated information as well as like updated pictures. I've seen that. It's pretty wild. And I was recruiting. I was oil and gas recruiter, and LinkedIn was like the number one source, because if they posted their information and filled it out, I knew that they were trying to advertise themselves. And so it was like fishing. It was it was like great. But the world's changed a lot, and I feel like LinkedIn's become, since they've added the video component, the TikTok for business.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and it gets indexed, and it's a big piece. The branding piece, the marketing piece, it's all layered, right? It all kind of works together, but you're sending a lot of signals. And if you're 30 touches, I mean, there's a lot of different things to consider. And that's maybe why those salespeople don't want to like bring another vector into what's going on, because they want to try to control what they could, but
for sure.
Value creation. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on some of that? I know I was being a little ADD myself. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was tracking right with you, so I'm ADD too. So that's great. No, I think for sure that's one of the things that we noticed was that a lot of these oil and gas salespeople that we've worked with in the past they weren't on LinkedIn. And so we offered a free social selling training. Yeah. Just was like, look, if you guys are going to be the ones closing the deals, it'd really be good if you're active on LinkedIn. And just for what you said, people are going to go, they're going to look at things. And I think that idea of what I said earlier about people, or maybe I didn't say it here, I'm saying it to somebody else, but, everybody thinks about B2B as, business to business, of course. But I got to tell you, there's no such thing, because it's always people to people. People don't buy anything from a business. People buy something from another person. And at the end of the day, they're going to make connections with those people.
So one of the frameworks that we typically follow is something called 7-11-4. Have you heard that?
No. Tell me about it.
Okay, this is great. So 7 hours of content consumption, or engagement. That's why conferences are so valuable, right?
Yeah.
You get to know somebody and you get to spend a lot of time with them. And if you're comparing yourself against somebody that's going to win a deal, whoever spends the most time with them is going to have that know, like, and trust kind of rapport component, right?
Yeah.
And then they need to see your brand, logo, face, whatever. This also works in social settings for anybody out there that's in the oil field that's maybe still dating. 7 hours, is a magic number for humans.
Yeah.
To get to that threshold of like their personal life, like you kind of cross a barrier where they're going to talk to you, they're going to trust you. Like there's the public face, right? And then there's the professional face. And then they got to be familiar with you. So 11 times, that's where advertising, that's where, seeing you bump into somebody enough times, you start to recognize them.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they need to see you in different places and different modalities to start making those entity associations.
Yeah.
So 4 different channels. So we operate under a 7-11-4 format. And so long form content, kind of circling back to LinkedIn, and that channel is a way to stay in touch with your prospects even when you're not. One of the coolest things about LinkedIn is that algorithm. If we friend each other, I know you're going to see my stuff for the next 30 days.
Yeah.
Like I know you are.
Yeah.
So if I know that and you're one of my target list that I want to reach, I can push out content in a way that knows that you're probably going to run across this, find it on your own. And now there's not that hard selling. That hard selling is just not here anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of changed.
Yeah. I think the hard sell is tough nowadays. We have a concept called commission breath. And
someone mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
It's so, I learned that from Ken Proctor, he's my Vistage chair, but yeah, he talked about commission breath, and it's so true. I think one of the things that we always like to preach to our clients when we're doing sales training is this idea that if the prospect thinks that you're in it for yourself and you're just trying to make quota and you're just trying to feast on them, they're not going to want to do business with you, right? Like nobody. I mean, that's why people, salespeople get a bad rap sometimes, because everybody's bought a car and they were there with the car salesman that had massive commission breath, and so they're just turned off on it. So that's also why.
And buyer's remorse.
Yeah,
all right.
But that's why nobody wants to talk to sales until they're 70 to 90% of the way through the sales, right? They're like, let me do my own research. I don't want this guy trying to rip me off. I'm gonna figure it out myself as much as I can, and I'll talk to him when I absolutely have to buy.
We've done pre-recorded webinars with a lot of success, as well as kind of 1-800 numbers based on. I work in and out of oil and gas, and we are targeting older demographic. A 1-800 number that they could call and listen to before they talk to us. Or you could run into a Vimeo channel where you could record and see how much they saw before you followed up with them. And so we've tried to incorporate that, where giving them the information in a way that they're approaching us in their own time.
Yeah, we've had a lot of luck with the webinars.
Yeah.
Not so much live, right? Because live webinars, you'll get 500 people show up, or say they're going to show up and then they forget about it or whatever, and then.
And have you seen the new webinar strategy? People are just putting it on my calendar. They're finding my email address, and they're just that's the new thing. They just put them all over.
Drives me crazy.
And I was like, what is this? And they're really good at naming it, right? And so I'm like, oh, maybe.
Well, mine's really tricky. I have an executive assistant, and she's made my life so much better. But random stuff comes on my calendar, and I was like, Missy, what is this? And she's like, no. She's like, I don't know what that is. I just saw it turn up yesterday. I thought you put it on. No, get that out of here.
Spam is just overtaken, and the AI is just going to make it worse.
I think you're right. I think it's gonna get way worse and way smarter. We got a scam the other day. It was a PO sent to me, and they had the whole check or email chain down below, and they were sent this to my accounts payable person and said, from me, saying, pay this immediately. And and I was like, no, don't do that. But so I think AI is going to really change a lot of stuff, and I think there's going to be I think salespeople and marketing people can ruin a lot of things sometimes. And I think if you don't. I'm afraid that we're going to overuse these AI tools, and it's going to ruin that personal connection. You can be really careful.
One of the things that I've seen in oil and gas, as well as distribution, that have done things the old school way, we're moving into this new phase of AI, and they're just getting comfortable with the Web 2.0 social media component, right? Because that's what we've been talking about a lot, is the social media component. A client we started doing a lot of visibility stuff. And I don't know if it's because of what we did or not, but they got a PO that came in through the website. Someone talked on the phone, provided fake paperwork, ordered $100,000 or something of stuff. The salesperson shipped it. And then I don't know all the details, but found out that it wasn't even real. And so they sent off to somebody $100,000 or more of equipment and stuff, because how to deal with online leads is different than in the trenches and face to face. So there's you were talking about kind of the governance component of what's happening with AI. I think that there's a lot of businesses that need to upgrade or upskill how they're doing business. And to do business online, there's a lot of things that you have to learn. And is your company prepared? Are you positioned properly? Is your team educated for some of this stuff? And I like how you talked a lot about kind of that education for the salespeople on LinkedIn. I think that that's so much bigger of a component that's not maybe addressed that maybe could be.
Yeah, I think education to me is super important. We had a client that they wanted to commercialize a new thing, and they did, but the sales guys didn't like it. They didn't see the value proposition. It was going to be more expensive. It was a new thing to sell. They were kind of used to kind of going picking up the orders and selling $1 million a month that way. And they're happy. They're really happy with the old way of doing it, and they didn't want to do the new way. And they didn't want to sell the new thing, and they refused to do it. And they, if you're selling $1 million a month, you can refuse to do a lot of stuff, right? And so as long as you're making your numbers. And so what we did was we couldn't make them do it, but we educated them on how much better it's going to be for them, how much bigger their commission checks are going to be with this, and how their customers were going to love it, and how they were going to really love driving their $100,000 pickup truck to work if they sold this. And and that education process made all the difference. And I think that education could solves a lot of problems in the oil field.
Well, we're coming close to time. I would love to just finalize. I think we talked about it a little bit, but the go-to-market strategy like framework, like for businesses that are listening, for salespeople who are listening, like just connect the dots. Even if you did it, like let's just tighten it up, maybe in a little clip for if you're going to create a go-to-market strategy and you haven't done that before, and you want to, focus on account-based selling. What are some of the components you should be thinking about?
Well, for me, I'm an oversimplifier. And so for me, marketing is one of those things that I always like to say, it's simple, but it's not easy. And the simple part is marketing, all you have to know is 3 things. Who are we talking to? What keeps them up at night? And how do we solve that problem better than anyone else in the world? And once you understand that, you have one last question, and that's where can I find these people? Because then you go and you build your strategy around that. And then I think, what do we have there? To unpack it, because it does sound really simple, but you have to understand who your target market is, who all is involved in that buying committee, who can say no. And I think that's one of the things I find interesting about the oil field is that many times the buying centers are very misaligned. So procurement is there to save money and find a reliable vendor that's not going to make them look bad. But the engineering side of things, they were looking for somebody that is helping solve them solve a technical challenge at the end of the day, right? And then safety people are looking for somebody that's not going to come in and get anybody's finger cut off. And all those people have all these different things that they're accountable for. And I think that is, you got to align your messaging around that. So that can be a little more challenging. But so the who we're talking to, you're talking to more people than you think you are. But anyway, that's my frame. That would be my advice.
I love it. Do you have a LinkedIn failure tip of the week, or do you want that to be it?
Yeah, I got my tip of the week.
All right, let's hear it.
So I have 3. Video. I think video is one of those things that we see perform so well on LinkedIn. It is short little clips. People like it. People really will, I will write a post myself about driving people to this really long, well thought out, well crafted, really thoughtful blog. And then, I get, 5 people click it, right? I make a little video about my dog and I get millions of views, right? And so you go, wow, that's crazy. And so I really do think that people love connecting with other people, and that's what you're there to do on LinkedIn. And I don't think there's any other format than video that'll help you do that.
Well, I think that leads in perfectly to how do people find you? What's your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, I'm not on LinkedIn. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. The company website is thebluebird.com, and it's Richard Byrd, BYRD, is where you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I really appreciate being on. It's great. We'll have to continue this conversation over some beers one day.
Absolutely. So everyone, make a difference, not a sale.
Thanks for listening to OGGN, the world's largest and most listened to podcast network for the oil and energy industry. If you like this show, leave us a review and then go to OGGN.com to learn about all our other shows. And don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter. This show has been a production of the Oil and Gas Global Network.